Okay, we take time to prayer request every week, and last week I put out a request for sermon topic, and just drop them in the plate back there, or text me, or any way you want to communicate. And as usual, I don't stop asking favors. Just in this building, I do it in other buildings also. So this one comes from a member of the YMCA. A couple weeks ago, I taught on 3 of the biblical heroes: Daniel, Joseph, and Nehemiah. In God's timing, the request was, what about the Gentile servant? God actually talked about my good and faithful servant of some of the Gentile leaders. Now, if you remember right, we're Gentiles, which basically means we're a bunch of pagans, because we weren't Jewish. So, how can someone who's not in alignment with God be a good and faithful servant? By doing God what God intended to do, to happen. I came up with a timeline. And I'm not going to start at the beginning. I'm going to start a little bit farther down. I'm going to start with Daniel. Daniel was taken into captivity, you remember, early, so they could get some of the elite young Jewish leaders accustomed to the customs of the pagan world, so they would be able to teach the Jewish people how to live when they went into exile. But something happened. You know, that God gets involved, kind of messes up the plan. Instead of the people being taken in, learning the pagan culture, which they did, and for the influence of how the Jewish people should live, they taught the pagans how to live with character, with the knowledge of God. The king was Nebuchadnezzar, or the emperor was Nebuchadnezzar. And 4 young men stood out. Daniel, he did have one of the foreign names, but nobody can pronounce it, so we don't use it very, I think it was Balthazar or something of that nature. But there was also 3 others, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And when Daniel said, we're not going to eat the food that is contaminated, we're going to just eat water and vegetables, we're not going to, there was probably pork sitting there, which was not allowed, and there was conflict immediately. They said, we're going to continue with our custom. And they were worried, well, if you don't eat all of this fancy stuff, you're not going to be healthy. And if you don't look healthy, that could reflect badly. Well, they said, well, give us a chance, just go ahead. Well, it turns out they were healthier than the ones who were eating garbage. Might have been the earliest days of Lay's potatoes. So, and then there came a time of trial. Picking up certain customs is one thing. Wherever you go, and I've been to a lot of places, the food's different, the customs are different, the dress is different. All these different things are different. But when they start wanting you to surrender to a different God, other than the Lord God Jehovah, it's a line that cannot be crossed. And Nebuchadnezzar himself built a tower, golden tower. Beautiful. And then they had the band play. And when the band played, everyone was to bow. Everyone was to bow to the glory of the power. Well, yeah, it should be safe because everybody's got their head down and stuff. Who knows who doesn't do it? But there's always the checker. And 3 guys got caught. They were the buddies of Daniel. They were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Most of us know the story of the fiery furnace. They built that fire so hot that it was even killing the people that were stoking it and the ones who threw them in there. But something happened. They threw 3 guys into a furnace that should have incinerated them immediately, and they didn't die. Not only did they not die, when Nebuchadnezzar went down and looked in there, he saw 4. There was a 4th person. We believe that is one of the first times of the pre-incarnate Christ being with the people in absolute need. When they came out, they didn't even smell like smoke. And they became governors and leaders within the empire. But the one who shone most greatly was Daniel himself. He served, and he moved up and moved up and moved up in the bureaucracy. And believe me, you know, if you've ever experienced the bureaucratic system, whether it's corporate, government, or any other, it's not a pleasant thing to have to work through the system. You're trying to do the right thing, and hopefully you get recognized. And Daniel was doing the right thing. And he probably, he followed the customs, he followed the laws. You know, he didn't have any problem with that. But then, and they were they were looking for corruption. You know, you talk about a cancel culture, they were really looking to cancel him out. So they came up with a rule. For a particular time, you can only pray in the name of Nebuchadnezzar. And they set him up, but he didn't care. He left his windows open while he took his time every day to pray to the Lord God Jehovah. Most of us know the story of the lion's den. Hungry lions, he got tossed in, spent the night with him, was pulled out by Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar actually, it said that he was praying for Daniel during this time. The prayers of a pagan king for a Jewish servant, that he would survive. And all the ones who, when they pulled Daniel out, they put the ones who accused him in. Nebuchadnezzar understood the value, understood the importance of the value. He understood all of that, but he never understood the singularity of God. At one point, he said, look at it, the empire I have built. Look at the empire I am responsible for. I. And God took his mind away at that point. Started living like an animal, grazing. And he was stuck that way. Kind of kept a special area in the palace where the people wouldn't know. One day he came to his senses and prayed to the Lord God. and was healed. During that time, you think, during that time, all those Jewish people showed up. All the ones that were brought into exile. How much better did they have it? Because the entire empire was being influenced by the followers of the Lord God Jehovah, Yahweh. Well, very often, a good leader is followed by a bad one. Next to show up was Belshazzar. I guess that's close to what Daniel was supposed to be called. I'm sorry, I skipped one. Darius. He was exposed to them, but he didn't really embrace it. He didn't embrace the value. But he did get influenced and things stayed decent. But then showed Belshazzar, and Belshazzar was sacrilege. He was a partier. And he crossed the line. You know, there's always that line. During their party, he said, hey, all those golden goblets, all that plunder that we got, that Nebuchadnezzar had put in a special place and had put in storage. He said, bring it out, let's party with it. And if you've ever heard the term, the handwriting on the wall, this is where it comes from. Who's still around? The interpreter of dreams, the interpreter of godly things, Daniel. What does it say? Because it's in a tongue they do not understand. And because of that very night, the empire of the Belshazzar was overthrown. And we see Daniel's influence, we see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's influence. Here they are. They are supposed to prepare it so the people will learn how to praise foreign gods. They will learn how to, all the customs. Instead, they changed the customs. They provided the influence of God. Nebuchadnezzar became not a Jewish person, but so influenced by them and so respectful of that and so understanding that he praised the Lord God. Next on my list comes Xerxes. Xerxes is another partier. Xerxes, and in Corinthians, the scriptures tell us that bad company will corrupt good character. Well, he had a bunch of characters around him. And they influenced him to get rid of his wife, and they were just, and they were becoming more and more corrupt, hating anybody who called out wrong. When he got rid of his wife, he was kind of lonely. So, who could tell me the winner of the only beauty contest there ever was in the Bible? Esther. She became the wife of Xerxes. But her uncle is the one who was her guardian and was the one who actually got her in place. He was about to be destroyed. The entire Jewish nation was about to be destroyed. But because of the place she was and the influence she was, the chances she was willing to take, the influence of Xerxes saved all of the Jewish people. And Mordecai, her uncle, became one of the most renowned leaders within that empire. If you go to the last chapter of the book of Esther, there is a tribute by Xerxes to the influence of Mordecai and how much he had saved not only his people, but got rid of the corruption within the empire and became a leader. The son of Xerxes was Artaxerxes. I guess that's like calling somebody junior in today's language. Well, here's Mordecai running everything. Here's Esther influencing within the palace. So we know that when Artaxerxes grew up, he set the stage. He was influenced. And again, they had worked. Mordecai had worked through the system. Esther had been put in place to plead for the lives of the people. And then the management skills and the faithfulness to what they believed in was such an influence. When Nehemiah showed up, he was one of the most trusted individuals in the entire empire. and he heard the plight of the people in Jerusalem. A couple weeks ago, I talked about how he got back, and with opposition, they rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem. And then the people started